Day 3 of the Microsoft versus FTC trial has concluded, and it had some spicy testimony from Jim Ryan via a pre-recorded deposition, in addition to one analyst who wasted 2 hours of everybody's time, and then another analyst who kind of destroyed most of that analyst's points. Let's talk about all of it. It's going to be a longer video, I think, but the good stuff came from Jim Ryan's deposition, so we will start there right now. So there was one big topic that Jim Ryan covered off on, and it was that there was this email around August that freaked Jim Ryan out, and it sort of went as follows during the trial. Did you become concerned about the transaction on January 31st, 2022? Jim Ryan, that's the Microsoft lawyer, or just lawyer during the deposition. My recollection at that stage, I hoped that we could still come to some sort of agreement between PlayStation and Microsoft. The lawyer said on May 23rd, 2022, you believe that there would still be some sort of an agreement between SIE and Xbox. Jim Ryan, I believe so. The lawyer said on May 26, 2022, you wrote him 3 days later. You weren't concerned in May at all about the transaction. Jim Ryan sort of laughed and he said, I wouldn't say I wasn't concerned at all, but it was really his response a few months after my email of Thursday, May 26th, which really set alarm bells ringing. That would have been on August 26, 2022. Correct. So my question is, what was happening in August? And I went back and looked at some of my videos, and here's what I found. What was going on around that time? I think the Brazilian filings came out about that time. I did like a 3-part series where I was breaking apart documents. That was before the 26th. Xbox called out PlayStation for blocking Game Pass games. Xbox called PlayStation's concerns incoherent. The Embracer Group bought a bunch of things. The Activision deal was approved in Saudi Arabia. And as we get closer to that date, we see that Xbox said that console exclusives are fading away, and the PlayStation increased the price of the PlayStation 5 on August 25th. Now, the date in question, the email that freaked him out, was on the 26th, and as near as I can tell, there wasn't too much of interest on that date. But if you have any ideas of what would have freaked Jim Ryan out at that time, let me know in the comments, because I have no idea what possibly could have said that just made him suddenly start running to regulators. But it is interesting that around that time, it did seem like Brazil, or wherever the big document dump came out around that time, leaned toward Microsoft allowing it to happen. Maybe he finally realized, oh, this could actually happen. Maybe I should get my stuff together. But anyway, continuing on. He sort of hinted that he could have made Call of Duty a PlayStation exclusive. The lawyer said, do you think it would be better if Microsoft kept Activision games on PlayStation? Yes, I do, because they're monetarily incentivized to do so. So do you believe it's in Microsoft's best interest to make Activision games available on multiple platforms? No, I don't agree with that, Microsoft lawyer. So if you were running Xbox, would you recommend making Call of Duty and other Activision games exclusive to Xbox and PC? That's a hypothetical question that I don't wish to answer. Microsoft lawyer. So you don't get to answer? Ryan, I don't have enough knowledge to answer that question. That was via Tom Warren over at The Verge, who's been doing great coverage. But low key, I read that as him saying, oh yeah, we totally make it exclusive, which is what we all thought would happen. So I found that exchange funny personally. But anyway, he also admits that he wanted regulators to block the deal. So he admits to the whole idea of totally hamming this whole thing up. And he admits on the record that he told Bobby Kotick, I believe it was, I don't care about a deal. I just want to block your merger. So this is about the conversation. I told him that I thought the transaction was anti-competitive. I hoped that the regulators would do their job and block it. What Bobby wanted to do was cover himself by extending the marketing collaboration between Sony and Activision in the event of the transaction not proceeding. It is not an Xbox exclusivity play at all. They're thinking bigger than that, and they have the cash to make moves like this. I've spent a fair amount of time with both Phil Spencer and Bobby Kotick over the past day, and I'm pretty sure we will continue to see Call of Duty on PlayStation for many years to come. That one is also from The Verge. I'll be sure to credit Tom because I used those particular 2 quotes from him. So anyway, very interesting stuff. He straight up admits, oh yeah, I totally just want to block the deal. What else we got here? He thinks the Call of Duty model is brilliant. So here's what I got. He said, the way that they've been able to organize themselves to release basically a new game every year, and the games are different and unique games. There's nothing like it in the industry. What makes the games different and unique? They have different themes. They have different storylines. They have different gameplay. They are made by different studios. He said you can't really compare it to sports games. Activision somehow manages to make a new game every single year. He seems quite enamored with Call of Duty and the Call of Duty model, but then he went on to talk about how, oh, we think we got something great with Bungie. Something that was a little disturbing to me was about how he talked about monetization, though. He thinks console gaming hinges on an install base that can be monetized. He said, the critical feature of the gaming console in terms of its attractiveness to the people who make games is the level of its install base, the kind of utility of the user base for people who make games to monetize against. And I was a little unclear on what he said, the kind of utility. I wasn't sure if it was utility or whatever, but it's so weird that he thinks the attractiveness is how well users can be monetized. Maybe I didn't quite get that quote right, but wow. If that's your main goal, like, look, Elden Ring came out, it was $70. You bought the game, you got the game, right? And then this quote, this is the critical feature of the gaming console in terms of its attractiveness to the people who make games is the level of its install base, the kind of utility of the user base for people who make games to monetize against. So they're like, well, you have an install base of 30 million. That means we can monetize against 30 million. I think he could have phrased that a lot better because it just sounds like the goal of every game designer is to squeeze every penny out of people. And that was not my favorite quote to hear. Anyway, Jim Ryan admits that he wants regulators to block the deal. I actually think I did that one already. Let me read it again. Yeah, so that's the one that I read already. My mistake. Jim Ryan does not like Game Pass. He calls it value destructive. You said, I talked to all publishers and they unanimously, I'm recording this too late, do not like Game Pass because it's value destructive. Was that true at the time, Jim Ryan? I believe it to have been true. This is a very commonly held view over many years by the publishers. So you have no reason to believe that Call of Duty would go on Game Pass if this transaction was not complete, right? Correct. He went on to further clarify that he never even asked to put Activision games on PlayStation Plus because he didn't think that Bobby Kotick would agree to it. So that actually helps Microsoft's case a lot because the whole plan is to put them on Game Pass, which would mean it's going to be available to more users. Jim Ryan also talked a little bit about how, he's concerned that they're going to get a degraded version on PlayStation, and a game designer at Respawn on Jedi Survivor tweeted the following. Oh my goodness. Tweeted the following: no game dev willingly tries to put out an inferior release with less quality and more bugs. No one would do that. We want to make things that people enjoy and will always try to ship the best product despite any circumstances. For Jim Ryan to suggest otherwise is asinine. So basically, Jim Ryan is implying that they're going to get an inferior version of Call of Duty on the PlayStation brand, and this game designer, he's the senior encounter designer on Jedi Survivor, just said that's BS. That would not happen. Now, there was some other testimony. Before I get to it, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. If you do like my content, hit that like button. These videos take a lot of effort, especially after a full day. So hit that like button if you do like the content. What else did I have for you? So I wanted to talk about this story because there was this analyst, Mr. Lee, who came up who he just wouldn't answer any questions. It was absolutely ridiculous to the point they were like, okay, let's look at Call of Duty today without the merger and with the merger. And based on what was being described, they basically drew a graph. So without the merger, would you say it would come to Xbox? Check. Would it come to PlayStation? Check. Would it come to PC? Check. And then it wouldn't come to all these other platforms, or at least the guy, like, even the way he answered this question, with the merger, what will it come to? The Xbox? Yes. Will it come to PlayStation? He said, I don't know. PC, Nintendo, Nvidia GeForce, Boost Drive, Ubiquitous, Anywhere, EE. Now, this was being described via audio, so I did my best to recreate what I imagine it looked like in the courtroom. So it's just like, there you go. So without the merger, what platforms does it come to? 3. With the merger, does it come to all of these platforms? The analyst for the FTC basically said yes, but he thinks it would be important for them to withhold from PlayStation. The argument just like doesn't make any sense, and I feel like this blew it up. So I think my notes are here. No, that's the old one. Dr. Lee's testimony was a huge waste of time. These are just my personal notes, right? Dr. Lee never answered a question. It got so bad near the end of the nearly 2 hours of him saying nothing that the judge started just asking him directly, can you say Call of Duty will be removed from PlayStation after the merger? He basically refused to answer the question, so they drew the chart that I showed, and he still wouldn't say yes or no. Lee's final response hurt the FTC. If there are economic gains from trade and they grow large, let me turn off my camera for a second. It's an economic interest of parties to come to an agreement. So the contracts are legit. He even testified like it is probably in their best interest to sign a contract and release these games on competing platforms, which is weird because the whole time he was just like squirreling around that answer for so long. It was really a waste of everybody's time listening. It was very frustrating to listen to. And most people are just like, were bored or annoyed by it. But anyway, the final analyst came on, basically destroyed Dr. Lee, in my opinion. This expert had a few follow-ups about Dr. Lee's findings. You mentioned a couple of types of data that you want to follow up on. I'm paraphrasing there. Call of Duty is not an essential critical must-have. It's not a unicorn. She made fun of the terminology unicorn being used. Dr. Lee's markets are too narrow and don't define the realities, and the transaction will expand the availability of Activision. She also actually had an opportunity to analyze data from both parties. I believe Dr. Lee only had data from PlayStation because PlayStation and the FTC are trying to make this case, it seems like. I don't want to imply that they're colluding or anything like that, but I believe he had access to PlayStation data, but not Xbox data. Anyway, the ability to have a broader set of players matters. It matters for the enjoyability of the game. She found that Steam and Nintendo continued to grow with or without Call of Duty. So the point being made is Call of Duty matters, but it doesn't matter that much. It is not a unicorn. It's nonsense. She was like laughing about that terminology being used. And what's really interesting is some court documents were posted late in the night. And I'm just going to bring up my tweets about it because I was reading it. I found them sort of interesting. Well, here, maybe I have them here. Professor Lee's approach is not sound as a matter of economics. If a model generates what Professor Lee admits are nonsensical results, that is a sign the model is unreliable. In such an instance, the solution is not to constrain the model to force a more sensible outcome, but to reformulate the model such that the unconstrained model gives a sensible result. This is especially true when, as here, the constraint simply replicates the original flawed model. So there's a ton of redactions in here, but there's some interesting stuff. And this is a testimony that was added, and it is from David McDaniel Keller, professor of economics emeritus at the Booth School of Business of the University of Chicago. So now we have 2 experts basically calling Dr. Lee's analysis garbage. Like, there's a point in this document where they say his analysis has no basis in reality. Uh, if you give me a second here, Professor Lee makes other questionable assumptions in his foreclosure model. So I don't know if that's going to come into play tomorrow, or if that's just a piece of evidence for the judge, but yeah, it doesn't look good for them. One thing that did not look good for Microsoft, and I didn't get to cover off on it the other day because, life, was this email, though, where basically this took place in, you can see the date here, 2019. Thanks for sharing interesting analysis. One of the biggest challenges that I think we have right now is the expectation that our new business/strategies, Game Pass especially, xCloud Mixer, will make money and grow at 10/10 from the start. Misses the fact that things like Netflix lost money for years chewing through startup funding. But I think the idea is to create a moat that nobody else can attack, right? This is from Chris Thompson, and all this is important context. Hi, Sarah and GGPD Extended. This upcoming Friday, we have some time on the LT meeting agenda to discuss some of the frameworks we're rolling out to track the performance of our 3PP Game Pass content investments. We have a similar effort underway for our studios titles, but wanted to give you a chance to review this piece that you all work on a much closer basis. There's a lot of material to cover in this deck, so I'm sending it out as a pre-read for those who have time to look at it prior to our Friday session. Ultimately, this is part of a broader effort that we're using to standardize the review of our gaming content investments, both across the gaming team and in the finance organization. The material is being rolled out to some of our existing MBRs, a lot of terminology in here, but anyway, stick with me, and quarterly review decks. And we're hoping to also integrate as part of existing businesses processes such as A2Ns. I know some of you have a chance to review already, but please let me know if you have questions to all of this prior to our session. And there was a note in here that Matt Booty, well, the point that I was trying to find actually wasn't that one. Matt Booty basically said, outbuy PlayStation. I'm trying to find spend Sony out of business. So that's the quote that I thought was in there. Here is Eurogamer talking about it. Microsoft had intended to spend Sony out of business, Xbox Game Studios head Matt Booty wrote in an email dated from 2019. The email sent to Xbox exec Tim Stewart has publicly surfaced now during Microsoft's ongoing courtroom battle with U.S. Federal Trade Commission over its proposed $68 billion. In it, Booty encourages Xbox to make further acquisitions to bolster Game Pass and complete with Sony. We, Microsoft, are in a very unique position to be able to go spend Sony out of business, Booty wrote in reference to the planned spending of $2 to $3 billion in 2020 to avoid competitors getting ahead. And that was the email that I thought I was reading, but I made a mistake and I apparently had the wrong asset up. Apologies. It's late. I did my best. Sharing, but don't share. I'm trying, like, how did I bring up the wrong email? Anyway, that is everything that I had for you today. Some interesting stuff from everybody. And let me know what you think about everything that's come out this far. I think day 3, that testimony from Dr. Lee was just a waste of time. It's been refuted by 2 different experts now. Like, he has a flawed model, right? So they should have adjusted the model to show how much damage would be done and bring somebody on the stand that would concretely answer the question. He refused to answer questions supporting his data, and he also refused to answer questions that sort of refuted it. But that graph that I made, that I imagine is sort of similar to what they showed in the courtroom, it paints a pretty clear picture. And this is what the judge is looking at. The judge is like, okay, without the merger, it comes to 3 platforms. With the merger, it comes to all these platforms. But this analyst who she made fun of for having not read the CMA report, he was like, well, let me reference the CMA report. And the judge is like, the one you just said on under oath that you didn't read. And he's like, yeah, ha, ha, ha. Like, I think she was like done with him. She was trying to press him to answer more clearly, but he was just a really annoying listen, honestly, because he couldn't just answer yes or no. A lot of comments online saying he should be in politics. that's my read on day 3. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell if you like my content. I really appreciate you watching. Thank you so much. If you want to become a member, all these videos are posted for members without ads. Thank you so much, members. This list is updated, so I appreciate all of you. If you want to become a member and support the channel, click that join button. I'm going to get out of here. If you want to see the previous day, you can do so right here on the pop-up. I'll see you soon. Bye for now, everybody.